What is up, guys, and welcome to week 9 of Dynasty Talk with Sam. This week, we're going to do something a little fun and a little different. We're going to do a Dynasty mock draft on Sleeper just to kind of see where I'm gauging some of these guys and where the ADP has them. If you were to say do a Dynasty mock draft right now, obviously we're not going to do one in the middle of the season, but I do think it's a good exercise just to see where we kind of have these guys' ranks and how I would approach a draft if I was drafting or redrafting at the beginning of the season based on what we know now. So definitely stay tuned after the intro. So like I said, guys, we're going to try something new. We're going to try a new little layout here. Let me know what you think, if this is legible and whatnot. I'm basically just sharing my screen, right? So we're going to see how this works, but we're going to get this draft kicked off. I just randomly gave myself a draft slot. It's going to be a 12-team super flex mock draft. We're going to do 6-team rounds. Just me, right? 16 rounds, 12 teams. And I'm in the 4 slot, it looks like. So let's get this thing started. Right, so not too many surprises. I definitely don't think I would be going Josh Allen over Patty Mahomes, but sometimes in these mock drafts this totally happens. But Mahomes, Allen, I think the 3, 4, and 5 are going to be pretty similar. I definitely would see Jalen Hurts maybe going here. I totally understand Burrow going, right? Burrow has a lot of love, and I really like the passer that Burrow is. But I'm going to go here and take someone that I personally have ranked a little higher on my dynasty rankings. And that's going to be Justin Herbert is who I'm going to take. Now, it is a little tough to take him over Jalen Hurts. And I definitely think it depends on team build. I could totally see if you're a win now team going with a Jalen Hurts style, as he's probably going to score more points week in, week out. But I just think long term that Herbert may be around longer, kind of similar to the Burrow argument that some of these passers may stick around where maybe Josh Allen has a shorter career length similar to Cam Newton, even though I do think Josh Allen is a much better player than Cam. But sometimes that happens, and you definitely got to think long-term in Dynasty as well, but definitely not get too caught up in it. So I'm going to go Justin Herbert with my first pick here. Now it's coming around Hurts, Lawrence, Chase Jefferson, Lamar, Lamb, Bijan, McCaffrey. It's pretty standard mock draft stuff here. I'm probably potentially looking at QB for my second round here. I definitely don't think the ADP is caught up on Tua here. So I definitely could see Tua or CJ Stroud being an absolute slam pick here. Just based on what I'm looking at, I really love going QB heavy when it comes to mock drafts, or not mock drafts, just dynasty drafts in general, right? If you're doing a super flex league, I really like to base my team around my quarterbacks. Now, as much as Tua has been absolutely balling out, and I definitely love Tua, I think I might actually give the edge to CJ Stroud here just because I like the youth and I like just being able to build around someone a little younger with less of an injury history. As much as I do love Tua, this is his first season that he's really been able to fully put it together. And, even though Stroud hasn't been in the league as long, I've loved what I've seen so far. So I'm going to go with CJ Stroud here in the second round. Now, coming back to the third round here, I'm going to probably look immediately at wide receiver. I do not like going running back this early in a draft. And since we already have 2 quarterbacks, definitely could take a peek at tight end. I don't hate going Andrews or maybe Hawkinson here. But just wide receiver-wise, I think I really like what I see. And I'm definitely eyeing Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, JSN, and Drake London here. Now, he hasn't had the best season yet. But I think for me, I would just have to go with Chris Olave. He's been very productive, even with a terrible quarterback, right? And I just really like his talent and the target share that he does have. Now, moving forward, can he maybe put it together a little more? 100%. But I'm going to aim to go slightly younger, as both of my quarterbacks are young themselves. So I'm going to go Chris Olave here. Now, it's tough in mock drafts, right? Like, we have some running backs going, Breece Hall, Eckler, Gibbs, Barkley. I definitely think Brees, Bijan, McCaffrey, and Gibbs are probably going to go this early. But it's really tough to tell, right? In some mock drafts, it can really depend. Will Jonathan Taylor go this early? I don't really know, but I mean, I'm going to look at the running backs here, and I'm just not really loving what I'm seeing at the moment. But I think it's going to be pretty hard to pass up on JSN here, right? Now, I just like the youth. Jordan Addison, I think, is another one that, based on my rookie rankings, I totally could go. I really do like what I saw out of JSN last week specifically. I think he was slightly more involved. And I just love the age, man. When it comes to a startup, you really can't go wrong going QB and wide receiver. So we're going to go JSN here. Now, coming back around, different round, same story basically. We're going to look right back at wide receiver, and I'm just going to slam pick this one. That's going to be Jordan Addison. This draft is starting off so crazy. Now, ADP values can really be tough on mock drafts because, right, it's just kind of going down the list here with slight variation. But it does give us good practice as what potentially could happen. It definitely doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? But I do think it's a good learning experience that we can all use. So I do have 3 wide receivers, and we don't have a flex spot in these settings. But I'm probably still looking at wide receiver maybe here. I might even look at QB and look to get a third one just to have some really good trade value. I think Jared Goff could be really good value here. I'm curious tight end wise. Honestly, now that I'm looking at who is left, I do like a lot of these wide receivers. And I definitely have Zay Flowers above this guy in the dynasty ranking or dynasty rookie draft sense. But I think it's going to be really tough to pass up Dalton Kincaid here. I love what he did last week. And the fact that we already have 3 wide receivers to me is really important. That I do think it's time to diversify slightly and get someone of a different position. Like I went over earlier, I'm not a huge running back guy. I could understand going DeAndre Swift here, maybe if you're trying to get a little youth. But I think for me, I'm just going to go Dalton Kincaid, as I loved what I saw last week when he finally got the usage with Dawson Knox out. And this would be a great start to an incredibly young dynasty team that could basically start competing as soon as next season. You're probably not going to have it this year, as none of these guys are really top 5 at their position, minus maybe Justin Herbert here. But now that some of these younger studs are going, you're going to be left with the position of, do you go older or do you go young right now? I may look at QB here. I think if I was doing a draft myself, I would probably be picking Jared Goff or Geno Smith here, just because I really like having the third QB as a trade asset. But since we're going over here, I want to draft some starters more for my team, or guys that are just less trade assets in general. And I want to try to just build a balanced team. So running back wise, Rachaad White, Aaron Jones, Charbonnet's, well, okay, Devin A-Chain's here. This is really tough, right? I think what I'm going to do is not take Devin A-Chain because I think he just would have gone earlier. And for this exercise to be good, I really don't want to feel like we're stealing that. So I just think HM would have gone closer up here to where Gibbs went. So I'm just going to assume that he already went. And I'm going to go back to wide receiver here. And I'm just going to go Zay Flowers. And I'm just going to scoop up all these rookies, right? When it comes down to it, this is just crazy value. And you can't really pass up on young guys when it comes to a dynasty league. I really love what I've seen out of Flowers. I think I like his target share. And he's just the best offensive weapon besides Mark Andrews on that team. So when it comes down to it, I think it's just a great pick and you can't go wrong. Now, I really, really want to keep going back to wide receiver here because for me, it's so tough to pass up some of these values. But I am going to look at running back, and especially I'm going to look at what I saw last week specifically. That was Zach Charbonnet out snapping and out touching Kenneth Walker. I don't know if he out snapped him, but he definitely out touched him, right? And so I think we may start to see more of a split there. Now, I'm definitely a big Kenneth Walker fan still. He's not going to go away. But the fact that PD Sunshine is trusting Charbonnet with some more touches in the pass game, pass blocking especially, I think bodes well for Charbonnet as an RB2 maybe in Dynasty. Now, he's going to be the RB1 on our team, but I'm not really trying to get an aging running back on this squad as I'm not really building for this year. So I think Charbonnet is a great pick, and we're going to move forward with Charbonnet as our RB1 on this team right now. Coming back around, I think it's probably time to start looking at a third quarterback. Now, I think Brock Purdy probably already would have gone. Trey Lance is ranked way too high, right? This is more of a preseason thing. And I think I'm just going to go off this season alone. And what I've seen is Sam Howell could be a very good third QB. Now, he could be out of that position as early as next year. But as of now, he's a young asset who's performing well fantasy football wise. Now, NFL wise, he's a little hit and miss. But fantasy football wise, I think Sam Howell is performing very well. So having him as a third QB that you can either dish to someone who may need him or just to roster three QBs on your team in general, I think is very valuable. So I'm going to go Sam Howell here. Now, coming into round 10, I might go back to wide receiver. I'm still looking at running back. I might try to pick up someone younger. I definitely would love it if Tajay Spears is still here, just because I'm a huge Tajay Spears fan, and I think it's just going to bring great value with him. So looking here, looks like Tajay Spears in the 10th is still here. So that's just an easy pick for me, right? Get another young running back on the team to pair with Charbonnet. That maybe they both become starters, maybe they don't, but I think they hold value, and that's very important to not miss on as many picks as you can, or to draft players that have a chance at gaining value compared to losing value in a dynasty league, right? So looking back here, we could go tight end, maybe get a second one. I really do love stacking very good tight ends just because I'm a big tight end fan here. But I'm going to go to another rookie that I've really talked about. Yeah, I know I'm drafting a lot of rookies, but sometimes in a startup, that's just what you have to do, right? If they're falling to you in spots where you want to draft them, I think they're very valuable picks that can really just show, kind of how it can go. So I'm going to go another rookie here, and I'm going to go Josh Downs. He definitely looks to be the wide receiver 2 on that team ahead of Alec Pierce, which I'm loving. I love his route running. And with Anthony Richardson moving forward, I think Josh Downs could definitely be a wide receiver 3 in fantasy and just be a relevant guy in your team week in and without. Definitely on bye weeks, but just see where he lands. Now, I think we're about the time where I might try to get another tight end here. And I'm going to look and I'm going to find someone who actually just had a huge week and just bet on the upside that with Zach Ertz out, he may continue to do it. And that's going to be Trey McBride here, right? Trey McBride just had an absolute monster week, 25 points in a PPR league, which is absolutely crazy. He definitely finally got to shine in the role that we've all been hoping for him since people probably drafted him fairly high a couple years ago or last year's rookie draft, right? So we're going to go Trey McBride and get another tight end on this team behind Dalton Kincaid just to have some depth at that position. Now, with my last 4 picks here, I'm probably going to get a little more risky. I may take some value guys, and I may skip over some guys that I personally think may have gone by now. The Brock Purdy's, Mac Jones, etc. Sometimes in a mock draft, you're not getting the most accurate thing, but I do think it's good to just kind of show who may be available if all these players are getting picked up. So I'm going to go right back to wide receiver and just draft someone who's a great value pick, and that's going to be Jacoby Myers. He's been performing super well as a wide receiver 2, basically in redraft. And I think his value moving forward could be really high. Like Adams didn't get moved to the trade deadline, but we'll see what happens next offseason. But even so, Myers has just been operating very well as the number 2 wide receiver on that team. Josh Jacobs probably leaving next year. So I think that leaves a nice little hole for Jacoby Myers. Now, I am going to try and get a third running back on this team. Kind of tough, right? Mostert way down here. I think that'd be a great pick. I'm just going to try to be a little more realistic and assume that he would have been gone by now. So I'm going to take someone that probably could be here, and that's going to be Jerome Ford. I loved enough of what I've seen as him filling in. With Hunt there, they're splitting touches more. But Ford definitely has upside. If he's just a handcuff to Nick Chubb next year again, who may or may not start off slow, may or may not be back right away, or just be moving forward, he definitely looks like he might have earned himself at least some touches. So at times it's nice just to have RBs on the roster because you never really know what's going to happen in Dynasty. So moving into round 15 here, these are tough. I'm going to stay away from quarterback because I just don't think these guys would still be here. And I think I'm just going to go back to tight end and see if I like anyone here. Jake Ferguson is someone that's definitely jumping out to me that I really, really like. And I know this is not a tight end premium league, but I'm just going to triple stack a tight end here. I think these guys, if they hit and you get top 12 tight end, you actually can trade them for as high as a second round pick, potentially a high second round pick, if they start performing and someone needs a starter. I think Ferguson's a pretty good pick here. Now, coming into the last round, perfect, just like I planned it. I'm going to take my favorite player in the NFL right now, and that's going to be Rashid Shaheed. He has been absolutely lighting it up. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to take a peek at our roster so everyone can look. We got Herbert, Charbonnet, Spears, Olave, JSN, Jordan Addison, Kincaid, Stroud, Flowers, Sam Howell, Josh Downs, Trey McBride, Jacoby Myers, Jerome Ford, Jake Ferguson, Rashid Shaheed. This is basically just a team full of my guys. Now, it's not always going to work out like this in a mock draft. You're not going to get everyone. And in a real draft, this is never going to happen. Sometimes you can move up and down the board to get some of your guys. But in general, I think this was just a good exercise of walking through some of the things that go through my mind and how I'm trying to build my startup teams. I like to go young, more of a win year two model. But there are definitely things, depending on how the draft falls, maybe you have to go old and try to win. But there is more than one way to win a dynasty. So I think that was a fun exercise. And thank you guys for tagging along. Let me know if you would have picked anyone different or what you would have done. Hit me up on Twitter at Where's Waldorf. But thanks for tagging along for a little mock draft. Just wanted to try something different on Halloween this year, see what happens. So thanks for tuning in, and I will catch you next week.